right, judges, we have Emporia State University next for your listening pleasure.
So the question we were tasked with answering is if the government should break its own rule and bail out depositors over the 250K limit that is set before. So the way we structure our presentation is how we discuss basically. One person will be saying the cons for one argument, the pros for one argument, and then we're gonna summarize why we ended up deciding with something or the other one. So I'm gonna start saying some reasons that could be argued that the government should break the law and pay $5 million, for example, to one big investor. The first argument I want to mention is that if the government doesn't do this, there's probably going to be a lot of panic with people. People are going to lose their faith in institutions, in banks, and probably there will be a cascade effect, and many people will start making big retirements of money in the whole money supply system will collapse, basically. So if the government wants to avoid panicking people and want them to still be faithful to institutions like banks, they should break the law and pay them their money.
The banks probably should not break the law, excuse me, because one, it is against a law that they have made themselves. You know, they're going back on their own words that they are saying, and it's also limiting the freedom of the taxpayer money because they would have to use taxpayer money to pay back those investors who invested their money into those banks and trusted with those banks. It would be the exact same way if they just invested their money in the stock market and they lost it. That is their fault they lost it. They could have done their research. You know, if this bank wasn't a very trusted investment bank or credit union, you know, you probably shouldn't invest in into those people.
And then as a whole, we kind of analyzed the good and the bad and put all of them together and went for like the overall good. So in the decision-making process, we had like some people who supported it versus not, but after a good discussion, we decided that the bank should not break the law. Sorry, the government should not break the law because that would be going against their own word, like Jackson said, and that would also create unreliability. So like, as someone who invests, if my bank keeps changing that amount, I might not trust and like actually not invest. Also, one of the problems was like that it might create panic and that recession might happen, but it's only one bank and it's known for having people who like invest and like deposit a lot of money. So a recession is not very likely to happen. So we thought that like a better solution for this would be definitely not breaking the law, but also like focusing on bettering off the communication. So we could work on internal and external communication. First talk as a bank on how we would communicate our investors that this is like a different problem. It's not that like we're running out of money forever. It's just like a short-term problem, but in the long run, they are getting their money back. And they just have to like trust the bank because they trusted it in the beginning.
So in a big picture, we're trying to avoid the government to just create more rule of men and take arbitrary decisions whenever needed. And we're trying to go for a non-interventionalist way of thinking about the government. We're trying to limit their hands off the private sector. That will be all.
Okay, all set, ready for a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
So is your position because you believe the rule itself is more important, or because you believe the consequences of violating this particular rule would be worse than the consequences of not violating the rule?
It'd be more both. There can't really be one. I mean, there could be one side. Somebody could decide just to be it, but when it comes down to it, you know, both are really good reasons to choose. You know, nobody's above the rule of law, of course, and.
So in a way, picking up to what Jackson was saying, we believe that the rule of law in this scenario, like the general ground rule that we all agree on, is that if you trust a bank, you're trusting them, and you shouldn't be going to the government as your dad trying to be like, please give me my money back because I got into this transaction and I was cheated on. But we also took this decision because we thought of the big picture and the consequences that would happen if the government starts bailing out people, basically.
So if you think that the consequences would be better if we didn't bail them out, and you also think that following your own rules is important, that's great, because according to your analysis, those both tell you to do the same thing, right? But what if you thought the consequences were actually going to be worse? Like, so I know in your presentation you said it's only one bank, right? What if we thought, well, this is actually going to cause the majority of small and medium-sized banks to close because everyone's gonna there's gonna be a run on all these banks. Would that change your analysis at all if you thought the consequences were gonna be more severe than that?
You can give me more.
Well, I think it comes down to doing what is right over doing what is easy. It is real easy to just pay off the bank, pay back the investors, and even if the consequences were gonna be even more terrible, it still doesn't make it right to go back, for the government to go back on its word, to break a law, even if the law in itself doesn't seem that right. I mean, that's a different discussion, whether it's a bad law or not, but it's...
Sorry, I would like to add to that. It's not like only that it's right, because obviously if it's not working out, then you should change something. That's why we have amendments. But it's more like looking at the bigger picture, because we talked about different banks, maybe like following this pattern, and investors like not trusting banks and like keeping their money rather than trusting like financial institutions. But I think that would only happen if like you don't communicate with your investors, like if you don't let them know what's going on, and all you say is like the government is like, no, we're not bailing you out, and the bank doesn't say anything. That creates panic, and then other banks like will go through a similar process. But if you're clear and you tell them like what's gonna happen, and you give them a time frame, and then the government says like, yes, we're not bailing you out, and this is our reasoning, then you have kind of like a better idea of why that decision was made. And therefore, as an investor, you understand that it's like a short-term problem.
Something that was also mentioned in our discussion, when we actually talk about this, like many banks, like small, medium-sized banks, like having cash problems, is that if the government starts bailing everybody out, probably they'll like, we're pushing back problems. With intervention, we're just pushing back problems, but in the end, the problem will come. Like,
Yeah, it's gonna be a recurring problem.
One last thing, if we were to just bail out the banks, and we did, and we did just pay back those investors all of their money, of course, we would use the taxpayers' money, which, as the government, would show the people that we only care about the rich. We're using your money, sorry, not the rich, but just the investors. We're using your money to help bail out these wealthy, rich investors. You know, you're showing how you care about the wealthy population more than the entire general population.